This is part 3 of my series on the pistol, which examines the semi-automatic pistol. This is a longer video than the previous ones because we know a lot more about how these were developed. My name is Norm Cairns. I wrote this book, Mistakes, Misstatements, Lies, and Other Miscommunication Tactics. It is for sale on various sites. I am a former journalist, a retired federal prosecutor, and I am currently a private investigator, but for purposes of this video, I am an NRA pistol instructor qualified to teach 3 courses, a concealed carry instructor, a level 3 armed security professional, and an expert marksman. My previous videos in this series dealt with the development of firearms, the flintlock, and the revolver. This video covers the development of the semi-automatic pistol. When I refer to a semi-automatic pistol, I am referring to a pistol that reloads itself based on the recoil from the pistol firing. An Englishman, Maxim, invented the first recoil-powered machine gun in 1883. The American Gatling gun, which predates Maxim's machine gun, was operated by a crank. After Maxim's machine gun, pistol manufacturers sought to produce a pistol with the same firing mechanism. The first semi-automatic pistol to gain any commercial success was made by Hugo Burchard, the C93. The C93 was more reliable than its predecessors, but was too large to be carried as a pistol. It was more of a carbine than a pistol. Semi-automatics used a variety of firing mechanisms, but many allowed the bolt to move backward in order to allow a new round to load into the chamber. Before we move forward, German manufacturers hosted a series of training seminars in Berlin on the new type of pistol, and one of the people attending those seminars was Fritz Walther. Fritz went back to his father's gun shop in Thuringia, Germany, and convinced his father, Karl Walther, that the shop had to make semi-automatic pistols because they represented the future. Fritz Walther was the driving force behind Walther's efforts to produce a semi-automatic pistol. We will discuss Fritz Walther and Walther firearms in general later in this video, both good and bad. The company has a very dark history, but its contribution to semi-automatic pistols is undeniable. 3 years after the Burchard C93, Paul Mauser introduced what was known as the Mauser broom handle pistol, which was a lot smaller and was commercially successful. Winston Churchill owned one. The Mauser broom handle, or Mauser C96, was also the first semi-automatic pistol to be used extensively in combat operations, most notably the Second Boer War of 1899 through 1902. It continued to be used for decades in many wars, including the Spanish Civil War. Bolshevik revolutionaries used a Mauser broom handle to execute Tsar Nicholas II and the Romanov family in 1918. Back to the United States. The United States Army needed a semi-automatic pistol to replace the revolver, so they opened it up to bids and had what was basically a contest. The winner was John Moses Browning, perhaps the most brilliant firearms engineer to ever exist, and his entry was something that changed history forever.
This is it, the Colt M1A 1911. Browning, in a stroke of genius, realized that a metal envelope over the barrel of the pistol could operate the reloading mechanism. It used a locked breech, so when the pistol fires, the envelope or the slide locks to the barrel and both move together, allowing the pistol to reload. When the pistol runs out of ammunition, the slide locks back, informing the shooter immediately that he or she needs to reload the pistol. It had two safeties, an external manual safety and a grip safety, so if you were not grasping the pistol, it would not fire. It's only my opinion, but the Colt 1911 pistol changed the world, and is perhaps the most important pistol ever designed. Browning was a pistol designer, not a large-scale manufacturer, so the federal government gave his design to Colt in order to mass produce the pistol. The impact of this pistol on pistols worldwide was tremendous and remains so to this day. Today, almost all semi-automatic pistols use the Browning system. The 1911 was the sidearm of the U.S. military for about 40 years. Unfortunately, Americans loved this pistol so much that they were never really able to move beyond its design. This was due in part to the pistol's deep cultural connection to America. Also, the pistol really couldn't be improved. In 2011, manufacturers produced what was called the 2011 pistol, which had a double stack magazine as opposed to a single stack, which is what the 1911 had. There is a debate about whether this was an improvement. One of the most aesthetic features of the 1911 was its slender design, so adding a double stack magazine made the pistol wider and less sleek. It also made the pistol more likely to print or show when concealed in clothing. To this day, the luxury firearms producers such as Kimber produce 1911s, a pistol that has not been improved upon in 100 years in its design. Meanwhile, Georg Luger invented the Luger pistol. It was meant to be an improvement of the Bouchard C93 pistol. This is a Ruger standard. Ruger obtained a Japanese copy of the Luger and made a similar one in his garage, which started the Ruger Firearms Company. Now the Ruger looks like a Luger, but its operating system is different. It's a simple blowback pistol, but many of these early semi-automatic pistols use this system. As you can see, the Ruger doesn't have a slide. When the pistol fired, the bolt would move backward, allowing a new round to enter the chamber. Ruger used a much simpler operating system than the Luger, but it was a lot more reliable and is still used today. I have fired 300 or 400 rounds through this Ruger pistol. It's never jammed on me once or failed to fire, so my hat's off to Ruger. More complicated is rarely better. It just means that there are more things that can go wrong with the pistol. The Luger had so many flaws that the Germans replaced it in 1938 as their standard sidearm before World War II. Replaced it with what, you might ask? The pistols that German officers carried during World War II were mostly Walthers, not Lugers. So back to Germany and to Walther's gun shop. Fritz Walther had been redesigning pistols for years now, and they were starting to get pretty good. Fritz Walther realized early that Browning was right, and Walther pistols had slides. The one thing that remains of the Luger pistol is its cartridge, a 9mm Parabellum. That cartridge is still used today and is the primary cartridge for many, if not most, pistols. So, Walther produced the P38, which became the standard German sidearm during World War II. The Walther P38 was also the first double-action semi-automatic. Now, I discussed double action at length in my video on revolvers, but with a semi-automatic it's more difficult to explain. The Colt 1911 is a single-action semi-automatic, so in order to fire the pistol, the first time you have to pull the slide and cock the pistol. With the Walther P38 you could just pull the trigger and the first shot will fire. I don't own one, and I wouldn't own one even if someone gave it to me. I don't know if a piece of metal and wood can actually embody evil, but if there is one pistol that would qualify, it is the Walther P38. Not only did it kill thousands of American servicemen, demand for the pistol was so great that the Nazis ordered other pistol companies, Mauser and Spreeworks, to produce Walther P38s. Demand for the pistol was still so great that the Nazis moved manufacture of component parts into various concentration camps. Some of these camps were death by labor camps. housing Soviet prisoners and other prisoners from the Eastern Front. No American was ever sent to a death by labor camp, but that's a longer story and beyond the scope of this video.
We moved back to the United States and then to Belgium, and back in time to the early 20th century. John Browning grew weary of the United States, so he packed his bags and left, abandoning his company to the control of his brother. He traveled to Belgium, where he took a contract with Fabrique Nationale, or what we call FN today. His job was to produce a better pistol than the 1911. The federal government owned all the patents from the 1911, so Browning had to start from scratch. The pistol he produced with help from another engineer was the Browning High Power. The Browning High Power is the father of almost all modern pistols in Europe, except for Walthers, which are just descendants of other Walthers. These are several pistols I own. Can you guess which one was the most expensive? It's this one, the Browning High Power, produced in 1939. It's been fully restored to original condition, along with the competition trigger and updated internal parts. The JB on the grip stands for John Browning. I sent the pistol to CZ Custom to be rebuilt, and they said, "Yeah, we know that pistol well." We will talk a lot more about CZ in the next video. Near the end of the war, Walther had produced the most advanced pistol on Earth. Here it is, the Walther PPK. Big things come in small packages. Like the P38, the PPK was a double-action semi-automatic. The PPK was the first concealed carry pistol, and with an external safety, police detectives loved it because it could be cocked and loaded in a pocket with the external safety engaged. If the police officer needed it in a hurry, all he had to do was release the safety. The PPK is probably most famous as James Bond's gun, but it should be famous for another reason. Hitler used a Walther PPK to kill himself, so the pistol served a positive purpose. So we have discussed Colts, Smith & Wessons, Brownings, Fabrique Nationale, and Walthers. In the next and last episode of this series, we will discuss where these companies ended up and where they are now. We will also discuss the rise of CZ, which now probably produces the best pistols on the planet and owns Colt firearms. You remember this Colt 1911 I showed you. In the next video, I'll explain one of the deepest ironies in modern firearms that is associated with this particular model. I hope you enjoyed this video on the semi-automatic pistol.